I want to kind of start off a little different than I usually do because you've kind of done two things very significant. New York Times bestselling author and Grammy award winning artist. Played in the realm of writing in two different capabilities. And I wanted to know what's more difficult to do, write a book or create a really amazing album?
That's a good question. I would probably say the album is more difficult because it involves more moving pieces. It involves collaboration. That always stretches you because you got to work with other people. They're pushing you. With a book, it's kind of like you write, they look at it, they say, man, here's some thoughts about some edit changes, you go back. But with an album, one song can have 50 changes on it, and then just so many different things. And then I think there's an emotional connection when you're writing music too that is a lot different from writing a book.
Do you feel like you have to be in a certain, because writing an album, it seems like you have to be in a certain mindset, right, in life. You can't just like write an album when somebody tells you to write an album, right? Like it seems like it has to come organically, where a book is more, it's maybe about a lot more time to tell a story, right? Or tell sort of your life story in a book. And then the album is kind of like that part of the time in your life, right? So it's like,
Right.
does that make it the process different, right? Because when you're writing the album, you're kind of looking at maybe your mental state at the moment, right? You're not maybe dwelling on the past as much.
Yeah, and it is a different type of creativity. Like I remember I've written both on tour, right? But I remember going on tour and taking this big isolation booth with me and microphone and setup and all that type of junk. And you get off the road, you get off the stage. I jump off the stage, I go back to the bus and I start trying to record, or I'm like in a green room. We were in like amphitheaters and stadiums and stuff, and it'd be like I'm going into a locker room or something trying to record, and it is just I'm not in my zone. I'm just not in my space. So it's kind of like I'm just saying words.
Right.
Versus the book, I'm sitting on a bus just talking about stuff that happened.
Right. It's a little different. I wanted to go back to the journey, man, and like, when do you remember falling in love with music? Like, do you remember like the first time you actually like fell in love, and or did you fall in love with writing first, right? Were you just like writing stuff and then the music came after that, or was music first and then you started to learn how to write in different ways?
My mom was always playing music. She played music around the clock. So I remember just loving music. Even as a little kid, she's like sweeping the floor, listening to like old school Stevie Wonder, and then my mom was relevant too, so she would I remember when Snoop Dogg's album dropped, she was bumping it. So it was like I'm a kid, but I still get to listen to this because my mom likes it. You know what I mean? So for me, it was like I was just always around it. So it's always a part of our world. Like if we're in a car, if we're in a house, everywhere you go, it's just music. And she cleaning up every weekend playing music. So I was just exposed to it. And then I was a latchkey kid. I think when I really fell in love with rap music was being a latchkey kid, coming home from school, sitting in front of the television. I wouldn't watch cartoons. I would watch rap videos like all day long after school. That's all I would do was watch rap videos. And so I think that's really when I was just like, man, this is a world I want to be a part of.
Do you remember that era? Like, what were the videos playing that you remember?
Oh yeah, it was, 90s. So the 90s, just like I said, like Snoop and Wu-Tang and
So Nas, so really good Nas era.
Nas, yeah, all of that. It was like that whole time period of just like, and I'm just glued to the television. Like, wow. I remember watching the Nas Street Dreams video, like, whoa, this is crazy. You know what I mean? So
yeah, that was a different era, man. That was a crazy time. I remember the first album I bought was Bone Thugs and Harmony, East 1999, right?
Yeah.
And it was like it was such a weird first album to buy, but it was just like Crossroads was #1 in the world, right? I mean, that's like when the peak of music at that time, right? It was Crossroads, right? And it was just like, and then you had like where I was at, No Limit, like the whole No Limit started to really just erupt, and that's the moment in time when I started to really like listen to music in a different way, right? But I wanted to know, coming from that sort of era, there wasn't really any like Christian hip hop, right? The genre sort of wasn't, or like gospel, hip hop. I mean, obviously in the churches you have gospel and you have singers, right, that took that path, but there was not really hip hop back then, right? That that genre even existed that I can really remember.
I think people were making it, but it wasn't like accessible.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying? Because I hear about folks doing stuff locally.
mm-hmm,
Like when I meet people, they be like, "Yeah, man, I was doing it like back in
mm-hmm.
1982 in my block," and I was like, "Oh, that's crazy. I didn't know about it." So I hear about those stories, but I don't think it was like accessible. It's not like where would you find it or how would you know? I don't know where you would get it from.
Right, and I wanted to ask that because how did you decide, I guess, to go that route? And I'm not saying it was
Yeah,
like like a marketing decision, right? It was just like if
yeah,
you're gonna go into like hip hop at that point when you did it, it was not like the thing to do, right?
right.
When you talk to like when you were gonna come out and do this, like did you tell the people in your life like I'm gonna be like a rapper, and then like did eyes roll? Or did you say, hey, I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna do it in a different way, and it's gonna come from this way. I'm gonna speak about these type of things.
Mm.
Like, was the initial response negative or positive when you kind of started to tell people this is what you were gonna do?
I was always known for rapping, and like even as a kid, I started battle rapping and would battle people, so I love battle rapping. I remember just being around the city and like finding ciphers, and just
Mm-hmm.
because I felt like, man, I could destroy anybody, and it was just
Mm-hmm.
fun for me and I loved it. And
Yeah.
getting in ciphers and just rapping and just sharpening your skills. One of my best friends in high school was from Brooklyn, so he was telling me like, you be more technical, try this out. He would
Mm-hmm.
put me on mixtapes and stuff like that. So I love the art and the skill of it. And I was always a thinker, like I thought about culture, I thought about, justice and like things
Mm-hmm.
like that mattered to me.
Mm-hmm.
So like I really love Tupac because he was like, he would say some powerful, heart
Yeah.
provoking stuff. And what happened for me was I started probably around 17. I just started to question spirituality and started processing it. And I was just writing poems about what I was
Mm-hmm.
processing, but not like raps. And probably in 19, I had a literal spiritual transformation where it was like, yo, I see the world different. And it just so happened that I was in Atlanta at a conference and I saw a group of guys who were Christian rappers. Now, on the way to Atlanta, I was investigating spiritual stuff. I didn't really know I was investigating
Yeah.
Christianity. I didn't really, and they were playing their music on the way to Atlanta. And I was like, it's cool, but I really wasn't, I mean, but it was different when
Yeah.
I saw them in person. And I was like, oh, y'all are really part of hip hop culture. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like I could see myself being like them. So they set a precedence for me, like to like feel like, oh, I can talk about this stuff I'm learning spiritually and put it in rhyme form, and it's like it's a thing. And so if I hadn't have seen them, I don't think I would be where I'm at today.
Who was that? Was it a group?
Yeah, it was Cross Movement, the group
Okay.
Cross Movement. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And so seeing them in person, baggy jeans, they had I think back then, like South Pole and stuff. Like it was just like, oh, I mean, classic like early 2000s era bandanas, do-rags, like throwbacks. And I was like, wow, you know what I mean? Like I didn't know you could be like that, but talk about this. So
Shout out to the South Pole reference as well. I mean, that's
yeah.
the thing that struck me kind of looking over things and reading parts of the book was, obviously I think that the title is super striking. How I Lost My Religion, but found, well, the subtitle, How I Lost My Religion, but I Found My Faith. And I think that resonates with a lot of people.
Mhm.
Personally, it resonates with me, but I just think in general, in this era, right, this climate of the world we sort of live in, I think a lot of people are feeling that way, right?
Mhm.
But what does that mean to you? I lost my religion, but I found my faith. We could ask
Mm.
1,000 different people what that means. We probably get 1,000 different answers, you know.
Yeah.
But when you hear that, like, what does that mean for you?
For me, man, religion is like trying to earn, like
Mm,
doing the right things in order to earn love, in order to earn respect, in order to earn approval.
mm-hmm,
And I think religion is it's okay to follow rules. There's nothing wrong with following rules, but the motive for following the rules is the problem. So when your motive is to be accepted, is to be
mm-hmm,
loved, if you follow these rules, then that's unhealthy.
mm-hmm,
And so faith is believing that God already accomplished everything for you to be accepted. You just have to trust and believe in this reality. And that takes faith. Is that faith like, yo, you love me, but I'm a disaster. But you already paid for me to have this relationship with you. So I just got to believe that. That's That's faith. Because all of us are religious. That's just the way we are. We're just a
Mhm.
religious, it's like sports trains you to be religious. If you just do these things, you'll make the team. And that's
Mm.
just the mindset. So when you come to God, it's kind of like that same mindset. If you just do these things, you'll be accepted, or church people will accept you. And it's like, I'm done with that. I'm done trying to prove myself.
How long do you think like you'll have? I think you'll have the passion for writing forever, right? And like I can see you writing 4 more books, but do you see yourself writing like 4 more albums? Is there a transition that you think might be happening in your life where you might transition to more of this sort of long form writing, drive you like maybe writing a book does?
Yeah, I think I always make music. I don't know about albums, but I
Mm-hmm.
always make songs because they need to be made. An album takes a lot of work, a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And then a book is like, it just depends on if I have a lot to say.
Mm.
If I have a lot to say, then there's definitely a book. So if you're always learning, you always got something to talk about.
Well, there's a ton of talk about in this day and age, right? I'm in Amsterdam, and we're still on lockdown, and some parts of the U.S. are opening back up, and the world is sort of struggling this past sort of year and a half. How has the last year and a half been for you, man? Mentally, spiritually, writing, like the process has. What do you think has changed in you the last sort of year and a half?
Oh man, I mean, the world is just, it's wild. I think what's been interesting for me the last year and a half is just kind of navigating all the stressors, the
Mm.
stressors that have been going on in this world and in my life, you know what I'm saying? And just trying to navigate those well without letting them weigh you down too heavily, and just having a healthy way to process it all. Even you might be having a nice meal or watching a great show, and then you go, it's like, oh, I gotta go outside, and you go outside to run to the store, and it's like, oh yeah, everybody's masked up. This
Right.
is the reality that we're living in, or you know what I'm saying? You just get hit
Yeah.
with those doses of reality. It's like, oh man, this is crazy.
How's the family and your network around you? Everybody staying safe and healthy through all this?
Yeah, everybody's staying healthy. Everybody's good. We're actually fortunate. My mother been able to get vaccinated. My mother-in-law
Mm,
has been able to get vaccinated. I'm on my first dose, so
okay.
I got one more dose left, and then I'm vaccinated. So been a cool aspect of what's going on out here.
A big reason, man, I really wanted to chat was a lot about what you're sort of doing in the community and just in general, like just trying to do good shit, right? Like just figuring out a way, like we're always, like you said, we're always learning, we're always educating ourselves. And I think that goes for personal growth, but it also, to me, goes into helping people, right? Like you could get better at that. Like we could all get better at like finding ways to help and improve other people's lives within our network, within our community. So I wanted to talk about Collab Capital and how were you introduced to that? Can you just talk about the journey and why you decided to do that, and maybe tell the audience a little bit about what Collab Capital is and what its mission is?
So Collab Capital is essentially a fund that is aiming to level the playing field in terms of entrepreneurs and investors in the Black community.
Mhm.
Because when you look at impacting your community, a lot of times that is based off of people having the funds to do some of the work that they want to do within the community, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
if you say, oh, I got this business idea, I where I want to, I don't know, do something creative for the school districts,
Mm-hmm.
as an app.
Right.
Well, now you've gotta get the support for it. And unfortunately, the people with the capital to invest in that probably don't care
Mm-hmm.
about what your community or the things that you're trying to do. So you've got to find individuals who have that type of capital. And so what Collab Capital aims to do is to, galvanize and grab investors. It's a $50 million fund that
Wow,
has
that's
been
great.
raised in order to distribute it amongst these entrepreneurs and business owners, and some of the most ostracized or overlooked, which, in Atlanta, it's Black women. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's really just trying to look at them and say, all right, here's a group of them. I mean, it's not exclusive to Black women, but we do focus on them,
Mm-hmm.
and just make sure that they have the funds needed to get these ideas off the ground. And so one of the first businesses that we helped was Hairbrella, and Hairbrella, Tracy Pickett was an attorney, and she started this company where she was realizing how much money she was spending on her hair. and black women spend on their hair. But then it's like if it rains, it's like your hair is damaged. So she created this kind of like reinvented an umbrella for women's hair. But then she added elements to it, like face shield
Right.
for
I saw that. It
frontline.
was amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so all that to say is that now, her company is, they did $2 million in revenue, and she's
Hmm.
able to help out the community and to do things that she otherwise wouldn't be able to do because of the investment of collab
And
capital.
it creates local jobs. I mean,
Absolutely.
that's the biggest victory in all this, right? I mean, that's the thing that changes people's lives, families' lives, generations' lives, right? When you start to
Absolutely.
get that employment, and also working for companies that you like to work for, and be proud of where you work. It's
Right.
like everybody wants to work at places where it's like you feel pride in what you do and you love to go to work every day.
And your
It
skills can be
Yeah,
highlighted because some people don't get their
100%.
skills highlighted.
Totally. Absolutely, man. You got so many talented people everywhere stuck in jobs they don't want to be because they just don't have the opportunities around them to showcase their skills. But that's why I believe this is so important where you get entrepreneurs in the community because they give back not just economically, right? Not just drives like economic growth through like people buying their products, but man, if it could create local jobs, bro, it's such a game changer, man. And I just, man, it's amazing what's coming out of sort of finance and entrepreneurship. Is the fund just specifically for Atlanta or in Georgia,
No,
or it's everywhere, huh?
it's everywhere. Yeah, yeah, no, it's not just in Atlanta. So there's some great companies that another one out of Florida called Healthy Hip Hop that
Mm-hmm.
is aiming to, the Dallas school district has picked it up, but it's just like for elementary school kids who gravitate toward hip hop music, but
Mm-hmm.
how can they learn through it? And the music is dope. You know what I mean? So it's like
So did
using
you
that.
record something for it?
I I
What
actually
you
plan
doing? You come on, bro. You
I
gotta get on
plan
that.
to, but some of my young guys, some producers that I work with, they did, and I mean they kill it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
so
That's great. How'd you get like introduced to them, and like when they talked about the idea to you, were you blown away by it? Like what was your first response to it? Have you had other partnerships with other funds or firms like this, or is this the first time you're kind of dipping your toe in this water?
yeah. So what it was for me was my manager at the time was big into funds and
Mm-hmm.
investing, and he was always trying to expose me to a lot of these things, these particular things, and but he was so deep in. I was like, man, I gotta start in the remedial classes, man. I gotta learn what this looks like. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So basically, there's a spot in Atlanta called the Gathering Spot that my man Ryan owns, and a lot of it's basically kind of like a social house,
Mm-hmm.
where people, executives and business people come and they can do work and meetings and so on and so forth. And I was in there and I met some different individuals, and they said, hey, we're gonna have this like meeting of the minds. And it was like me, Cortez Bryant, who managed Lil Wayne and Drake for
Mm-hmm.
a season, and some other individuals, and we were all in there just talking and saying, man, how can we synergize more? And that particular meeting, Jules Solomon Burks, who is one of the founders of Collab, she had sold her company to Amazon
Mm-hmm.
and was looking to start a fund because she saw how difficult it was for her with her startup, and she just got absorbed by Amazon after creating something super dope. And we were like, yo, tell us more. And the more she got to talking, the more I said, man, I want to learn like this process. I want to
Right.
learn like what this whole investment world looks like. And so over the last few years, we just began walking together, and I came on as a venture partner. And it's been great, man. It's just been a coming across that learning curve. And then of course my man Chameleonaire was always schooling me to stuff. And I mean, I sat with
Yeah,
him for
yeah.
2 hours in Starbucks and just listened, talking. I was like, all right, I gotta make some moves.
That would have been a great conversation to be recorded, bro. Like
Oh
that's
my God.
that's the kind of stuff that people can absorb, man, and just learn. Like you said, like we all learn in different ways, and just sitting in on conversations like that. He's been in it for a while now.
Yeah, yeah.
I
He
know
actually
he's
just went
couple.
down to Cali and took 3 years off of music and just interned, which
Mm,
that's a testament to how much he wanted to learn.
yeah, amazing, man, amazing. I wanted to touch on music for a little bit and kind of just the industry, and you've been in it so long, and you've seen it take a bunch of different turns, right? You went from probably selling physical copies, and then all of a sudden Spotify, right? Now it's no
Mhm,
physical copies, right?
mhm.
So like when when you talk to, kids coming up, right? Let's say 16, 17, and so on, what's the kind of guidance that you try to give them? Because the game has changed so much, right? It's just so drastically different. Is there sort of stuff that you give advice to the young kids coming up that they want to act, they want to do music, that wants to be their career? Or do you tell them, hey, use music as another tool to do other things as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always communicating longevity because I don't think a lot of artists realize they have a window. You're like a professional
Right,
athlete. You
right,
have a
yeah,
so there's gonna be some LeBrons who
sure.
can play for forever, but most of y'all, you have a small window. You got about 2, 3 years.
Hmm.
And then it's like, that's it. It's a wrap. So, I was telling some young dudes, they had a big hit on the radio and they were killing it. We did a little tour and I was like, yo, y'all got jewelry, y'all, shopping all the time, but what's next?
Right.
Because you had a year where you made $5 million, but that $5 million is your earning time. Like that's the most you're gonna see.
Yeah.
And so what are you gonna do 12 years from now? Now you gotta figure out how to make that $5 million stretch for the next 12 years because you're
Right.
not gonna see that type of money
Right.
again. But that's the type of stuff I'm always trying to tell them is like, man, you can go, like I said in my project with Zaytoven, let the trap say, man, I said, you could run out and buy 6 chains, or you could start a barbershop and expand to 6 chains.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, that's just the mindset that I'm always hoping that they pick up.
When do you think like touring happens again? Like, what's the kind of conversations right now going on with that? Because I know so many, people are suffering in the music industry because it's not just about the artists; it's about the production people, right? It's about the equipment people. It's about the people who set up the shows. All these people are affected, not just the people in the studio.
Yeah, it's pretty sad, man. I don't. I think the music industry was just not looked at with any type of care or regard from the government
Yeah,
or different
yeah,
structural entities. But yeah, it's tough, man. I mean, I think people are trying to make it happen, but of course, a lot of that is on the venues, because the venues
mm,
are saying we're not open.
right.
And then what's going to happen is when they decide to open, it's going to be first. It's going to be like, who can make sure that the tickets get sold. They're not going to take any chances. So, some of these younger up and coming artists, they're not going to get a chance to tour
Mm,
because those venues are going to go first to people who they know can sell it out because they got to make their money.
mm-hmm,
You know what I mean?
mm-hmm,
So it's like,
mm-hmm.
yo, little Mookie Mook wants to rent out this venue
Right.
um on a Tuesday night and it holds 1,000 people, but he's probably only going to get 700 in there. Well, we know
Right.
that Alicia Keys can fill it up, or whoever.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
Right.
obviously, those are the people who are going to be first on the list. So it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, man. The last question I usually try to end with is really about the future and kind of what, we're in such a weird time and it could be difficult to answer, right? But when you look maybe 10, even 20 years down the line, man, like what do you hopefully want to leave behind? Like you've already done so much, right? You've already gave, I always look at music and people who are in it and when they can be satisfied, it's like when you gave something back to the industry, right? It's like you've done that, right? Success. You gave a piece of yourself to music, right? Like that's a fulfilled life. But like what, maybe in 20 years or so, like what do you want to, hope you leave to the industry, but also obviously to the community as well? Like what do you want maybe your legacy to be defined as?
Yeah, man. I would hope that people would see that I really wanted to let my ceiling be other people's floor.
Mm,
You know what I mean? I stand on the shoulders of giants who sacrificed a lot. And I want to make sure people are better off in the future because of some of the trails that I got to blaze, because of some of the examples I set. I was a Nipsey Hussle fan of his music,
mm-hmm.
but his efforts in the community really challenged me. And that was before he passed away. You know what I
Right.
mean? And so I would hope to inspire people in a way that he inspired me to say, all right, let me go beyond just making these songs and really see transform communities, transform lives because of what I'm doing.
Amazing, my brother. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy. I really appreciate you taking the time, man. Best of luck the rest of this year and obviously in the future.
Appreciate you, bro. Much love to you.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to the episode. Just want to give a quick shout out to the Cause Artist Partners.
everyone who has signed up for it. Truly appreciate it. I will list the link in below so you can check them out. If you want to become a partner, just go to causeartist.com/partner.